Well, good morning, Peter and Heather. Thanks for joining us for this mental wellness webinar, particularly in the food and beverage industry. My name is Robert. I'm the director of Resilient Restaurants of Colorado. And we are joined today with Heather Nelson of Kesed Wellness and Peter Hogland of the Frasca Hospitality Group. And this will be our first interview in a series of connecting with restaurant proprietors and employees so that we can dive into a little bit of not just what the state of the industry is from an economic and social standpoint, but on a deeper social, emotional, psychological level. Where do we need to be paying attention to how we are showing up and dealing with the stress of the situations that we find ourselves in, and maintain some kind of a grounded base with which we can maintain our businesses, but also grow them in a way that really connects with our workforce and our employees and our communities. And so we're just going to have a short interview today and ask Peter a few questions to determine his perspective, to get some of his thoughts and feelings, and to get a sense of his perspective on how we need to show up and what needs to be addressed. So the first question, Peter, is pretty simple. We'd just like you to kind of state your name and your position in your company, and we'd be really interested in, just briefly what brought you to want to participate in this event today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Rob. My name is Peter Hoagland. I've worked with Frasca Food and Wine for 10 years, over 10 years now. We now encompass four different restaurants, all sitting under Frasca Hospitality Group. And my position on mental wellness is that, as the demographics of our workforce have changed, understanding what our employees are looking to the restaurant and their businesses to provide. I think more and more the younger people are looking for this social and wellness component out of the businesses that they work for. And that's been a shift for us to say, how do we handle all of the inquiries and complaints and needs that our employees are coming to us with this idea of personal responsibility, and we're not familiar with this, we're not a wellness or HR company per se, and so it's really been about finding that balance of creating a culture where you're balancing individual wellness on a personal level with creating a culture and structure that is there to support and allow that to grow. That would be my elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to help create, I was just going to ask, with 4 locations, you must be, have roughly at least 100 employees.
We have, pre-COVID, we had about 220 employees. Nowadays we have about 160.
Okay.
Well, yeah, there was kind of 2 thoughts I had from what you were saying, Peter, and one of them was in the mental health world, what we noticed was industries like tech started really considering the employer brand, or what employees hold their employer responsible for. That's changing and growing and adjusting. But what's also interesting to me in this conversation within the restaurant industry is the demographics of workers are also those who tend to live paycheck to paycheck sometimes, or at least don't have $150 to $200 to put forth into a mental health therapy session. I mean, in Colorado as a state, the number one reason people don't seek mental health care when they need it is because of cost. But in a lot of ways, employers are in a really unique position about, what is our responsibility with health insurance being connected to employers, but at the same time, mental health isn't always covered within benefit packages that employers have access to. So I think there's a lot of complexities underneath the conversation of even an employer who really wants to create an environment where their employees can thrive, because that also affects the bottom line, right? Like there's the motivation of employees loving where they work because of how they're taken care of, and also how that builds a positive work environment for everybody involved.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the balance that I speak to, which is a lot of what we've sought to do is to create what I call soft benefits. So outside the 401k, outside the strict health coverage, what other organizations, partnerships can we establish that provide free counseling sessions, opportunities to go to yoga or the gym or the opera. And I think that, we're starting to see our role as a company of understanding where we have an authority, which is when an employee comes in and like creating an environment that's energetic and positive to support that outside life. And our role is to kind of maybe help point those employees in the right direction, give them resources that we don't have that authority in, and kind of help steer them. Hey, go talk to this person. Hey, have you really, do you understand your health coverage right now? And I think that we've gotten into trouble in the past when we believe or think that we can take any and every issue and solve that in-house. I think it's the recognition of where we have that expertise, and then being able to provide a pathway to the employee on where they can go seek additional help.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you must obviously spend a lot of time thinking on behalf of your employees and what kind of benefits and what is the culture of your workforce. How more personally are you navigating your own situation? What kind of tools and any tips and tricks that
Yeah, I mean, I
you
think
can share
it's
for owners?
I fall off the stucky tree, which is, you got to take care of yourself. Like you're not going to be in this industry long, or any industry long if you stay up late partying, if you wake up in the morning late and only go to work. And so there's this balance that I think is really important, on an individual level, that it's really a personal responsibility to take care of yourself. And whether that means getting out, walking your dogs, going on some bike rides, picking up a book and being able to decompress without a phone. Um, these are seemingly very simple things that I think we've lost and we've become disconnected from. And I know from experience, when you see employees that are burning the candle on both ends, are showing up a little bit gray or hungover, like you're just not going to put your best foot forward, and then you're not going to have that sense of accomplishment. You're not going to have that sense of improvement, and that's going to create a whole nother set of issues. And so I think there's so much kind of just basic wellness that we can all practice. But I think in our industry, there's a lot of people coming to us from a lot of different backgrounds with a lot of different experiences in life, and they don't all have these kind of personal skills, or they haven't had these exposures to understand how significant or just kind of best practices. And so I think that for us, it's a lot of kind of coaching at that very basic level. You see that in a wide range of skills that people might not have financial skills, or how do I get car insurance? How do I even do this? It's like, well, you pick up the phone, you call this number, and you walk them through. So I think that like kind of handling a lot of those kind of basic skills certainly for our employees, has been really,
Hmm.
really important.
Hmm.
You
Are
know,
you finding that, given the stress and anxiety that your employees are going through now, just with all the uncertainty and health concerns and et cetera, are people partying more? Are people kind of, the
No,
cabin fever builds up and then you kind
yeah,
of let self-care go out the window?
I think there was definitely an element to that, and I think it's really important to recognize that there's a lot of anxiety in our culture and our society based on getting sick with COVID. You know, there's lots of different situations, living situations that employees are trying to make decisions on. Well, I need a paycheck, but I also live with grandma, and it's really important to recognize that um, you know an individual employee's decision to come into work after partying really impacts a broad swath of people. And so I think early in the pandemic, we probably saw people thinking this was a vacation. And as the months have gone on now of us operating, of us being open, I think our employees are much more sensitive to how their personal decisions are impacting everybody's collective anxiety. And so I have seen the vast majority of our employees really tighten it up a lot, and do the social distancing and staying at home and not going out, because they realize the impact that they're having on one of their dear colleagues that they work with.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
but I mean, I think it's really important. It's an anxious environment. It's really tough because we're seeing a lot of guests that are, well, I can only sit outside. This is the first time I've been out. What are you
Yeah.
doing for X, Y, and Z? That um, that totally understandably translates to the employee who's now hearing that anxiety, might have some anxiety of their own. Is this safe? Is this the best thing that we're doing? Oh my gosh, like what do I do? So it is a pretty high strung environment right now.
Yeah. Heather, did you want to make a comment before?
I think that one of the things I appreciate that you're speaking to, Peter, is the fact that even for those who may not have as much awareness about certain skills or, um, you know, mental health and wellness world, it's all connected. How you show up to work, what that produces within that environment, how sometimes our emotions can physically manifest in not sleeping or taking all of our tips and going to drink after shift, and that just helps us go to sleep. There's a number of ways that um, sometimes mental health gets set aside and talked about as this like certain kind of like world that we're starting to figure out and learn about, but really it is connected back to the most simple tasks of waking up and taking your dog out on a walk and getting your body moving and getting yourself out of bed. And I think we do sometimes miss how those little actions along the way make a huge difference in the overall landscape. And also, I mean, research is showing right now that it's anticipated in the US that we'll have over 75,000 deaths from overdose and suicide because of distress of COVID. And I think the restaurant industry is at particular risk because of just the impact that it's had economically on people's lives and jobs, on top of many who are going back to the job environment, recognizing the risk for themselves and others and everything that everybody's trying to do to make it as safe as possible. So that
Yeah, we made
individualized
us
complex anxiety is real.
yeah, we made a switch maybe 2.5 years ago to really make sure that we talk about mental awareness and mental health, and try to destigmatize it as much as possible. So at least there's not that initial barrier of like, oh my gosh, it's just in my head and it's just me and I'm the only one in the world that feels like this. And I think that it's been both a pro and a con. The pro has been that we have created an environment to be able to talk about this, bring this stuff up. I think the con is that we've realized that we play this connector between two of like, okay, like this is a mild concern or a serious concern. Okay, here are appropriate resources. And so I think when we started to have those conversations, it obviously it kind of forces more conversations and encourages more conversations, which we want. And then how do you deal with that as the employer, either directing people to resources or having in-house solutions for that? Because we can't be therapists. We want to hear our employees. We want to like be there for our employees, but we have 200 employees. You can do the math pretty quickly that we're not suited for full-time therapy. And I think that's an important distinction of an unrealistic expectation that sometimes the employee has about the employer, which is like, oh, I can go to HR and I can talk for an hour and a half and like I'll have some solutions. It's like we're not equipped for that. We're equipped to tell you, to provide you resources, to hear you out if you have an in-house problem. But there's a lot of heavy issues out there, and yeah, we're not immune to them, or exempt from them.
Yeah, I'm going to explain what we're doing at Kesed, and not as this is the solution, but I think you're actually speaking to several aspects of resources that are needed, on top of the fact that a lot of healthcare benefits that employees receive, if they do receive any, for not you, but any kind of restaurant employer that they have, the mental health coverage can often be pretty limited. And then what happens is people have to pay out of pocket until they meet their deductible, which is usually multiple thousands of dollars. And, not to mention, most of us don't usually budget for mental health. So what can also happen on the mental health side is when people are ready to reach out for a resource outside their employer, it can be a tricky system to connect to. And something that I realized as the founder and CEO of Kesed is employers would love to know, how do I engage this conversation in mental wellness while at the same time stay in my lane as the employer? And so we created a corporate benefit program to be able to help employers subsidize or cover a certain amount of sessions for their employees as a benefit of working with them. And then Kesed's mission is to make counseling affordable for the underinsured. And so our plan, our options of different ways that clients get served on the other side of that program is still cheaper out of pocket, and can be for the length of care that a client needs that isn't found in a lot of policies that are within the current spectrum of health insurance. And so that's a way for us to not, like, if you have a benefit within your current coverage, that needs to be a resource absolutely shared. And there's ways that we can serve the community in an ongoing fashion that is affordable to the employee, creates a resource for the employer, and allows both parties to really have action behind the environment that you're wanting to create. And I think I say that example too, where I would love more examples of that within the mental health world, because I think they're possible. I think there's ways to equip employers to have more confidence around mental wellness, but also give resources that employees can trust and not feel like they're going to have to go in a hole of debt to be able to get the help they need.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I would love to learn more about that, because I do think that this soft benefit package is something that really is a great retention tool, also a great performance tool, and also, it's clearly necessary.
Yeah. I'd like to comment and just ask you, because, one of our questions is, what's really what would you say is one of the best ways to facilitate building trust between owners and employees? It sounds like you've taken the approach that, you recognize you can't be all services to your employees or meet all of their needs. And that by kind of coming to them transparently and saying, hey, look, this is what we offer you directly. Here's the resources that we've curated and, you know, vetted for your use. Is that enough to, you know, when you onboard a new employee or you bring on a new benefit and you kind of have a staff meeting about it, or just in their orientation, you kind of convey, hey, here's how we take care of our own. Is
I
that
think
where the
it's
trust building
a
happens?
little bit. I think that you need to make sure that you're employing people that are going to be receptive to those messages.
Mhm.
You know, I want wellness for our staff for so many different reasons. There's also a very distinctive, like, if you take care of you, I take care of me, and we like both do really great together.
Mhm.
If you don't have both parties buying into that, it's really hard to operate efficiently. Um, so not as a way to be exclusionary, but as a way to find kind of fundamental characteristics of, all right, like, you have an opportunity, like, let's get in this, let's really strive to push ourselves personally, professionally, and to find those people. I think are generally more receptive to those messages. um, you know, we have, I think, with a lot of restaurants, you know, just engagement issues of, guys, I'm giving you a 401k that's matching you 4%, and the number of people that participated is like freakishly low. And so, you know, we do try to message and have seminars and have classes as much as possible. And I think that that would be the next part, which is to make sure that you're present as much as possible. You know, I work in the restaurants as much as possible. Other ownership and leaders are in the restaurant constantly. And so letting your employees know that you're doing the work alongside them, and then
Right.
for them as well, in terms of crafting policies and benefit packages, I think is crucial. We try to talk to this as much as possible so that they understand that it wasn't just a fleeting dream or position that we took it, you know, 6 months ago.
Right.
And
Right.
so there's a really like a reoccurrence of like, let's talk about healthcare again, guys. Let's talk about your soft benefit packages, because I'm always amazed by the number of people that just aren't aware of it. And I know that they sat through onboarding. I know that they've sat through these systems.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to really being aware that it's important and it's our responsibility to coach a lot of these people through. Here's how you act as a professional. Here's how you act as, you know, an adult, an adult in society. And I don't, I'm not sheepish about that role, but I'm also, I think, recognizing that is incredibly important.
Hmm. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Well, I appreciate some of the comments and your perspective, Peter. And I think you have definitely a positive outlook on addressing it and what you're doing to, you know, incorporate these kinds of benefits into your workforce. And so I hope a lot of people will be inspired by your story.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me on here, Rob, and nice to meet you, Heather. And I'd love to learn more about what you're doing.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Great to meet you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Have a great day, Peter.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.